Hey everybody, it's Pastor Tim here. Hope that you guys are having a great week. Typically, I do all of my messages within a certain series. This past week, or for the month of November, really, I'm just doing some standalone messages. Well, this past week, I did a message called Crossroads. And I think there's a point where in everybody's life, we get to a point where we're at a crossroads, where we got decisions that we have to make. As a matter of fact, I would use the key word that I talked about this past Sunday was the word will, Will, will. Every human being possesses this innate sense of self determination and self sufficiency. I can do it, I can do this myself. And so when a person becomes a follower of Jesus, he kind of sets himself up with this unavoidable collision with the will of God, regardless of how severe his sin was. Because of our sin nature, we typically we choose what we want over what God wants. So when you get to know Jesus and you realize, wow, I got to take me off the throne and put Jesus on the throne, then there's this kind of this battle. Well, that led me to think about the story with Peter walking on the water to Jesus. That was a crossroads moment in Peter's life. If you don't know the story, basically Jesus has just done the feeding of the 5,000+ people. Tell disciples, get in the boat. He goes off and prays. Well, in the middle of the night, about 3 a.m., storm hits. Jesus is praying, and the disciples are freaking out. Winds are, rain's coming down, winds. It's just waves pounding the boat. And so Jesus, just typical, morning for Jesus, just takes off walking on the water to Peter. And Peter, everybody starts freaking out. They think it's a ghost. And Jesus says, hold on, it's just me. Take courage. Don't worry. And Peter says, Jesus, I think he calls Jesus out. He says, all right, if it's really you, tell me to come to you walking on the water. Jesus says, come on. Peter takes a step over the boat and boom, he's walking toward Jesus. And then it says, Peter looks around and he sees that there's a storm around him and he begins to sink. He cries out, Jesus picks him up, puts him back in the boat. The wind and the waves stop, and it says the disciples worship Jesus. And from this, I saw 7 principles. I'll just give them to you really quick that I think they'll help us understand this whole will thing that we've got. There's a crossroads in our life where we choose our will or we choose God's will. And I think here's some principles, some things to help you choose God's will over your will. The first thing is just look for Jesus and look to Jesus. Peter looked for Jesus in the midst of the storm, but he only began to sink when he took his eyes off Jesus. So not only do we have to look for Jesus and whatever we're going through, the highs, the lows, storms, valleys, calm days, sunny days, doesn't matter. We got to look for Jesus. Where is he? And then look to him. Even when the storms get rougher, we got to remember that. So look for Jesus and look to Jesus. And then the second thing I would say is that when Jesus gives you a command, obey it. He said to Peter, hey, Peter, come on, get out of it. By the way, none of the other disciples did this. Peter got out of the boat. And when Jesus tells you to do something, you got to obey him, right? So what is it that you need to obey right now that Jesus is telling you to do that maybe you're not? Third thing is that I think that faith is simply the next step. Peter only had to take one step to get out of the boat onto the water. And sometimes that's the only step you need. It's the most important step. But faith is just simply saying, I'm going to take that step. Again, I'm going through this really quickly. You can always go to our website at trinitybyram.com and you find this whole sermon. The fourth thing is that faith unleashes the supernatural. Think about that. Peter is not supposed to walk on water. Human beings don't walk on water. But because he took that step of faith, Peter got to experience something that the rest of the guys in the boat didn't. That's walking on water. Even if it was short-lived, you experienced the supernatural. What's keeping you from experiencing the supernatural in your life right now? 5, fear will sink you. Fear will always sink you. The moment he took his eyes off Jesus and he looked at the circumstances, he began to sink. When you looked at Jesus, you stay afloat. When you take your eyes off Jesus and you let fear grip you, you're going to sink. Number 6, think about this. Jesus saves you from everything. Not only did Jesus save Peter from hell, he also saved you from drowning that day. What are you drowning in right now? What fear? What anxiety? What pressure? What sin? Let me tell you what, Jesus not only wants to rescue you from hell, but he wants to save you from drowning today as well. And then finally, I would just say this: choose worship over worry. It is so easy to worry. And I think a lot of times we make worry what we worship. But you know what? Choose to worship no matter what. Now, as soon as the wind and the wave stopped, the disciples turned to their Christ, turned to their Lord, and they worshiped him. But Jesus asked even Peter and the guys, why do you doubt me? Why? Why do you doubt? In the midst of the storms, rather than worrying about it, try to worship me. Try to worship me instead. And my friends, I think that's some great advice. Every one of us is at a crossroads at some point in our life. It's our will against God's will. And you know what? You'll never win if you choose your will. Always choose his. Hey, God bless you guys. I'll be back in a week or two with another one. And I hope that you guys have a great week. And God bless you.